everyone. Welcome to another episode of Prescription for Life. My name is Linda Golick. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Consultant at Bellin Health, and I am so happy to be joined by my friend, Dr. Stephen Gerndt today. How are you, Dr. Gerndt?
I couldn't be better. Life is great, and it's always good to be with my Bellin family. So it's a great day.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So I wanted to bring you in. We're going to talk a little bit about psychological safety in the workplace, how that relates to health and well-being. We're going to clue you in on some cool stuff that we have going at Bellin Health that really started, with the heart of Dr. Gerndt wanting to make Bellin a fantastic place to work, even better than it already was. So why don't we start out? I know that you have a long history with Bellin, so why don't you just tell us a little bit about obviously what you do at Bellin and how all that comes together.
Sure. I'm, as you know, career cardiothoracic surgeon. I spent over 25 years working at Bellin and spent my whole time here at this program, which is just testament to what a great place it is to work. So I feel like I poured my heart and soul into it, and I had an unbelievable opportunity with great people around me. And I started out I say just as a surgeon, because my role was just to make sure I could do what I was trained to do. And over the years evolved through various leadership positions, which ultimately culminated in being president of the medical staff. That was a great honor to have that privilege. And I've been very close with the administrative leadership over the years because we're 90% hospital-based as a practice, and it was very important for me to realize that my situation, my success goes as the whole hospital system goes. And so I've always been a very system-oriented person. And and finally I was allowed to retire in a way where I was able to participate in mentorship of the next generation. And that just kind of was icing on the cake for me. And this is where I am today.
Nice. Just a great story. So I wanted to bring you in because you and I got connected when I first started at Bellin. Back in 2020, you had this heart and this vision for helping our workers, our healthcare workers, be more resilient, have a better working environment, have psychological safety in what they were doing. So I would love for you to share with our audience, the story behind that, like where that came from and how that all began.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and it's not any one particular thing, but it was learning over years. In a nutshell, as a young surgeon, my focus was on patient care and admittedly how I was perceived, my reputation, my outcomes with patients, and it was really the patient's outcomes. But for me, it was a lot about me because I wanted to establish myself as successful. So from that perspective, I really wasn't very aware of all the people around me who were trying as hard as they could to help me succeed and to help our patients succeed. So I didn't really have my eyes and really my attention on that as much as I did of what I was supposed to execute in my tasks and how were they being measured and were they successful. That was a very selfish perspective, and it's from a leadership standpoint, it's not very effective. I think over the years I learned through mistakes, through unhappy people around me, through people leaving, change in personnel, that I had to think differently. And in particular, one specific speaker taught me this lesson, that it's very important to value your people, the people around you, as much as you value what you're trying to accomplish, or in a business world we would call that your product. And that changed my perspective overnight. What does that mean, to value your people? And I started seeing the people around me in a way that was allowing me to be very personal with them, to understand what motivated them, what they struggled with, how I was impacting them on a day-to-day basis. And so I started to think and ask myself the question, how do I empower people around me? And the first thing I realized was, if they're afraid of me, they're not going to participate.
Right.
If I intimidate them, or if I make them feel as if their ideas will be put to shame, or they'll be embarrassed if they speak up about something, I'm doing them a huge disservice. I'm a horrible leader. but more, from my personal perspective of my outcomes, if the people around me are not free to be at their very best, to offer what their capacity allows them to offer, I'm really diminishing the potential of what we as a team can accomplish. Mm-hmm. So I found that the first step was for me to have an empathetic relationship with the people around me, so that I understood how I could free them up and make them feel comfortable around me, which is really what psychological safety is all about. Mm-hmm. Can they speak up and say something that they think might be entirely foolish without me judging them or putting them in a place of embarrassment? Mm-hmm. And that transition transformed my day-to-day work. Two wonderful things happened. People started sharing ideas with me that had a very important immediate impact on what we were doing. They made us better, without question. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't me making us better. It was I was now, in a sense, leveraging the people around me or empowering them to demonstrate what they could contribute, and allowed them to contribute, because I wasn't in their way anymore. And so we started seeing transformation in our outcomes. Massive improvement, that a lot of which was unexplainable. So that was one thing that happened. The second thing that happened, as I got to know what was motivating the people I worked with, mm-hmm. I started to trust them more. I didn't feel like I had to watch over everything and micromanage, but I started to believe in the people around me. And you have to be willing to allow errors to occur or underperformance to occur, so that you can then go, okay, we didn't do so well in this area. What is it we can learn from this? And how can we as a team make that better? How do I help you, and how do you help me through this? Mm-hmm. I began to explain why I thought the way I did about specific issues. Why did I get agitated or upset when this thing happened? Mm-hmm. Well, here's why. And then they would go, aha, that makes sense. I would get agitated too. Instead of feeling, I must have done something wrong. Uh-oh, I better watch my P's and Q's. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You close in. And because I was developing a different relationship with all the people around me, and I was looking horizontally as well as towards the goal, mm-hmm. my experience on a day-to-day basis was far more fun and enjoyable. It just became, my last decade of work was the most amazing time. I had so much fun, and every day I'd walk into the operating room and I'd say, all right, let's have some fun. Yeah. And that's what we did. And not fun at the expense of not performing well, but fun because we were performing so well.
And even very early on, when I first joined Bellin and I was in your department's area, just interacting with that team, there was just a sense of joy and happiness, and people were bright and cheery, and you could feel it. Mm-hmm. You could feel the difference in being around those people. Mm-hmm. You really could. So I noticed that right away.
If the people around you know that you're not putting on an act, but you really at some level care for them, and you love on them in a way that's professional, but also knowing that you're considering what their side of the story is, you're considering what things might be barriers to them, and you're working hard not only for yourself but to improve their environment. People feel appreciated and valued. That's what valuing is. Yeah. And it will transform an environment, and it really is palpable when you're there. Yeah. And because I got to be a part of that, it just encouraged me to continue doing it. And it's not that I would never get upset or mad or agitated or get stern in certain circumstances where it was required, but when I did, we would always circle back and say, okay, what was going on there? Why did that happen? Mm-hmm. It wasn't without reason. And so they would give me the space to express myself as well, so that I was safe to get upset without them either turning on me or firing me emotionally, which means to just disconnecting, shutting me out, not paying attention to me. And so we just had a fantastic, enjoyable time. And so I wanted to take that learning to another level for the whole health system. In the latter part of my career, I became vice president of the medical staff and then president of the medical staff. And I asked myself the question, what does a cardiothoracic surgeon have to offer the entire system that will transform or do something to make everybody better? And I knew it wasn't going to be about surgery. It was just too specific, and too few people would be involved in that. But I thought, boy, if I can help others, especially leaders, understand the importance of this, how simple it is, yet how powerful it is, that would be a great gift to the system. So that's where Civilitas came from. That's where it got its roots.
Yeah. And so in early 2020, when I had joined Bellin, we were in that process. You had this vision of how do we take these concepts of creating psychological safety, caring for each other, giving people the space to be innovative, creating environments that people want to come to work. And you had that passion and that vision, and you gathered kind of a cross-section of people, and that's where you and I met. And what was so beautiful about that whole thing was that everybody that you brought in just had that same heart of we love our people, we love the folks that work at Bellin. It's a great organization. We want to give people a culture, an amazing, amazing star-studded culture that they love coming to work. And if people love coming to work, that's going to translate into patient care, and we're going to take even better care of our patients. So kind of, through a culmination of meetings and collaborations and things like that, we came up with the idea that we would package it as a monthly program that we would give to our teams, and we rolled it out at Bellin, and it has this beautiful name, Civilitas, really the idea of being civil to each other, treating each other with respect. And we've developed it into a program that gets rolled out. We have over 100 teams at Bellin that are participating. We've been doing it we're in our 4th year of curriculum now. I don't know where those 4 years went.
Well, and I've had very little to do with that. All I really had to do is plant a seed and get the right people in the room, and you all just did amazing things that have really had a durable impact, and I think Bellin will never be the same, because Civilitas is it's a verb and it's a noun, and people, I'm going to have a Civilitas conversation with my team today, and it's awesome. When I first started asking myself that question, how do I leave something, or how do I impact the whole organization, I was having literally dreams and waking up with ideas and concepts in my head. And at the same time, I read this article on resilience that a surgeon had wrote. We had Dr. Michael Mattis here to tell his story, and I started doing research about psychological safety and the research that had been done through Google, and just kind of educated myself about what I was feeling and thinking, but I necessarily didn't have the expertise to express. And then I put together a proposal, and I went to our leadership team, maybe the top 30 leaders in the organization, and I said, we're in a competitive employee situation. We have turnover. They're not big issues, but we can't compete on wages. We can't just pay people enough to keep them here. We need to be the best place to work. And what defines the best place to work? Well, we know from the data that people don't leave vacation situations, benefits, even pay necessarily. What they leave are bad relationships and uncomfortable interactions. And so how do we be the best employee in the region so that we can compete and have the best employees? And I set out with this proposal that eventually became Civilitas, and I knew it was the right thing because there wasn't a single person in the room who was negative about it. It was so supported that it became a part of the strategic plan. A budget was put around it, and I was blessed with a team to develop it and carry it on. And the ideas that have come from that team, as I said, have been amazing. So it's been really fun. It's gratifying to see it still ongoing, even though I'm out. So it's really not my program anymore. But
it's the concepts that were the roots of it. And I always even tell people, like, we have a We have a cross-functional team where we take turns putting together the content for the monthly distribution. And there's always a video and there's always a discussion guide. And we literally just encourage teams to take 10, 15 minutes as a team, either watch the video together or watch it individually. And then there's some questions to talk about it. And the content is beautiful. I mean, we're talking about emotional intelligence and burnout and all these things that can affect all of us. But the magic is that you're taking time and you're letting people connect. And you're letting them get to know each other on a different level. And you're not just talking about the next work project. And I've seen the evolution just even in my own team. We do it once a month on a Monday morning huddle, 10, 15 minutes. And you can just see how people have become more and more comfortable sharing, being transparent. And it also just makes us check ourselves as far as what is going on in our department. You know, if the monthly topic is gossip, you know, it's an opportunity to say, do we have a problem with gossip in our department? And if we do, what do we want to do about it?
And how does it affect us when we do it? Yeah, what happens?
Exactly. So that culture piece is huge. And then the other amazing part, I think, of this story is that the connection to well-being just became so apparent. Because even in my own, you know, past lives, I've had jobs where I didn't feel psychologically safe, and I saw it take a toll in my health. I saw myself lose sleep and gain weight and comfort myself with potato chips when I wasn't happy in my workplace. And then all this data starts to come out. Like, this becomes the topic. We're doing Civilitas at Bellin, and it's all going well. And then all of a sudden, the well-being world like really latches on to this piece of psychological safety. And the data is just incredible. And it's like you said, people care about culture because we are in a workplace so much. We spend more hours in our workplace than we do anywhere else. The only thing we spend more time doing than our workplace is sleeping. Yeah. And maybe for you, not even, because you were.
I sleep quite regularly.
You probably didn't get enough sleep in some of those years. But it takes a toll on our whole lives. And that's why it's so important to address what's happening in people's workplaces.
Yeah, and you know, leadership is influence. And we've all heard the ideas that everyone is a leader, and you can lead up or you can lead down. And no matter which position you have in the organization, you have the potential to lead. And more importantly, you have the potential every time you interact with a person. You can either bring them life or you can steal it away from them. Yeah. And if you bring people life, the people around you, if you bring them life, they will return it to you in reams. So it's only making you better and helping you. That's the fantastic irony of it all. And if we all could just figure that out, if we just think about taking care of others, we don't have to worry about being taken care of because it'll just happen naturally. So that's the lesson in a nutshell.
Yeah. There's a great quote by Beth Ridley. She's a consultant out of Milwaukee that does a lot of culture type work. And she says, you shift your culture with every interaction.
Sure.
And it's true, and you can decide, is that positive or is it negative? But every interaction kind of sets the tone of your culture. So if we really become intentional, and I've seen this really transpire at Bellin, if we become intentional in caring for each other and really keeping each other as a priority, and of course we take amazing care of our patients, but really keeping each other as a priority as well. So how have you seen that then translate into patient care?
Well, quite specifically, because I'm a surgeon, that's kind of where the focus goes mostly. When I was in a state where there was some turmoil amongst our team and not everybody was kind of on the same page and there was turnover, and there's always going to be some turnover no matter what. It's a fact of life today, but more so than we thought we should have had. You're training people and then they just don't find it at home and they leave. You find yourself having to do other people's job in the room and to focus elsewhere, and things are just not in harmony. You can feel it, and you can't always put a finger on it. But what we saw is when we turned that around and things were kind of more orchestrated and going harmoniously, what we saw was our our bleeding complications specifically improved remarkably. And just things were more clean. We had more stability of the transitions from the operating room to the ICU, and literally it impacted our outcomes, and we could see it in the data. Saved money.
Wow.
For the program, lots of money.
Wow.
So there, people might argue that there's not a direct connection, but there is no doubt in my mind that there is that's a very important component of what we do. It has to be. So that's where I see it. And then just the things that you mentioned about the environment that I worked in, it just became a place that I loved hanging out in, because it was so much fun to be around. And then you can't help but take these ideas home. Because if it's really authentic, and if you're making an internal transformation with this external behavior, you'll take it home with you, and you'll see it impact your home life and your family. And I get feedback from my kids. I develop relationships with my spouse and my adult children, to where I can ask them, okay, how have I wounded you, or how am I continuing to make it difficult for you? What is it you'd like me to know about how we interact? And there's not a lot of negativity, but they're honest with me, and it's just an awesome thing to be part of as a parent, to see them be able to take their own ownership of our relationship too.
And I think that's just another lesson that we can take from this, is the idea that, our worlds collide all the time. So what people have going on at home, they bring to the workplace. What's going on in the workplace, they take home. So again, we have to be aware of that. We're working with each other. We're human beings. People have challenges. There might be illness. There might be death. There might be, I don't know how I'm going to get my kid picked up after school. There's all these things that come into play, and people bring that with us. So part of our message too is just to really remain human-centered. Remember that the people you're working with, you're working for, they are humans. They have their challenges. We talk a lot in Civilitas about giving each other grace, because we are imperfect, and that's part of what I think we've learned and how we've grown.
I think that's where the empathy part of our program, that's one of our pillars, is interpersonal empathy. And Google did research on that, and they asked the question, what is this? What is the key? The keystone to having a team that's effective. What is the common denominator? And they did a ton of research measuring all sorts of leadership personalities, how organized, disorganized the team was, and they only discovered one thing. What they discovered was, if there was a level of interpersonal empathy, if people knew enough of everyone's personal story to say, oh, they're grumpy today because of something entirely outside of our team, so I'm not going to get mad at them because of that. Or they value details over connectedness. So I might not feel, they're relationally really soft with me, but because they're stuck on the fact that we haven't produced enough details to help them make a decision. Now you see things very differently, instead of I'm mad at them because they're not acting the way I'm used to acting. That's empathy.
It's so true. Like really asking more questions and being curious, and not making assumptions.
And knowing them in a way beyond just they're your work teammate.
And that's what Civilitas helps us do too. It helps us learn more about each other. So if you're interested in Civilitas programming, you can send us an email, civilitas@bellin.org. We'd love to get you orientated. We'd love to give you started on it. We're a community serving organization, so we offer up that program for free. Dr. Gerndt, what would you say to leaders that might be listening that are thinking, is this something that can really make a difference in my team, in my organization? What would you share with them?
Well, I think it's important that all leaders seek to be better and realize that you cannot lead in a vacuum. And so you need to get other people to be mirrors for you, to reflect back what's in your blind spot. So I think it's getting out of yourself, putting yourself to bed a little bit, and looking outside of yourself to how you're impacting the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that's a long journey, because you get levels of understanding of even what that means. And I think getting older helps, because you change as you age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You cry more and you get softer.
Do you? It's true. It's true. Yeah. Good point. Well, anything else you want to share with our audience today about Civilitas or psychological safety, or
no?
any other parting
I just
thoughts?
say go out, have fun, and make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
Coming in, being on the podcast. We love hearing from you. So thanks to our audience for listening and watching today. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. And we'll see you next time.